All right, we'll call today's meeting to order. This is the May 6, 2024 meeting of the Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste and the Environment. Not as appeals, we are down our appeals rotation for a while. This is a regular meeting of our committee. I'll do the land and water acknowledgement first. I'd like to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. I'm Brian Mays, I'm the City Councilor for St. Vital Ward. I'll be chairing today's meeting, joined by my colleagues, Councillor Santos and Councillor Dobson. Councillor Gilroy is away on city business. So probably need a motion on that.
Do you need a motion?
Sure.
Okay, so moved
That's good.
to Cindy Gilroy, Councillor Gilroy be granted a leave of absence due to a personal matter.
Sure, sounds good. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary, that's carried. Madam Clerk, do we need to approve previous minutes? Yes. So moved. Thank you, Councillor Dobson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, that's carried. Should also introduce Carly Dolsky, our clerk of recent meetings, took over a while ago, and Tim Shanks, our director, is here as well, both other city staff. Procedural matters, did we go right to our appeal?
Yes.
Somewhat unusual, we have an appeal here today, so this is not something we see all the time. So, Madam Clerk, you can
Sure.
walk us into this.
In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the appellant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the appeal. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the appellant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Please note when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. Item 1 is an appeal under the City of Winnipeg Sewer Bylaw number 106/2018 at 870 Lagimodiere Boulevard. We have no one joining us over Zoom today, so we can jump into hearing from our appellant, who's joining us in person today, Mr. Joel Grant.
Oh, do we get in a summary?
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry, a summary first from the administration, thank you.
Yes, our manager of environmental standards here is Renee Grissel. She's going to give us a presentation on the deal.
Ready?
Morning.
Morning.
Carly.
Renee Grissel, I'm the manager of environmental standards. So our group is responsible for the monitoring and the analysis of the water and wastewater under the sewer bylaws, the water bylaw, and under provincial and federal regulations. So this morning we have an appeal, Maple Leaf Foods appeal under the sewer bylaw.
There we go. Okay, double click.
Okay. Okay, so our agenda today, a little bit of background on why we're here today, the effects of high oil and grease and wastewater, the pollution prevention planning program, what program we have for the city of Winnipeg, Maple Leaf Foods pollution prevention timeline, and the administration's recommendation. A little bit of background of this appeal. Maple Leaf Foods have not been able to achieve long-term compliance with oil and grease discharge limits since first being notified in 2014. On November 2014, Maple Leaf Foods entered the pollution prevention program, which allows companies to work towards compliance by submitting pollution prevention plans. In October of 2023, Maple Leaf Foods had completed 2 pollution prevention plans and was still not in compliance with the sewer bylaw oil and grease discharge limits. In March of 2024, Maple Leaf was issued an order to bring the oil and grease in their wastewater into compliance with the sewer bylaw by April 19th, 2024. Effects of high oil and grease wastewater. So why is this a concern to us and why are we requiring Maple Leaf to be in compliance? High levels of oil and grease can cause sewer blockages, which can result in raw sewage overflowing and backing up to homes, businesses, or a neighboring property. Could also cause basement flooding, raw sewage overflowing into park, yards, streets, creeks, and rivers. And also it may result in increasing operations and maintenance costs to clean and repair damaged sewer pipes. And it also places the environment and public health at risk. So when you have an industry that produces high oil and grease, as it gets into the sewer system, it cools, it hardens, and it can cause all these blockages in the sewer system. So it has to be treated at the source. It can't be treated at the treatment plant. It has to be treated coming out of the industry. So this is why we're here today.
And are you clarifying of what, I mean, I think we all know what Maple Leaf does, or at least come in here with a preconception of that. So the 870 Lash site, that's pig processing, what is that?
Maple Leaf Foods, it's an industry, bacon production, things with high, obviously their treatments have high oil and grease coming out of their system. It should be treated at the source. It should be going through their treatment system and into the sewer system.
So when you say it hardens, that's like lard then, right?
Pretty much,
Yeah,
right? When
so-
you cook bacon at home, right? You have all that lard.
It cools and
It cools, it turns,
Okay.
goes into the sewer system and it causes a whole bunch of issues for us. So that's why we want to catch it before it gets into our sewer system and not at the treatment plants. So it's responsibility of the customer to reduce those high fats, oil and grease before entering the sewer system.
One other question, when it gets to if it gets to our treatment facility, does that create undue strain on the?
Absolutely, all the way down from the sewer system right to the treatment plants. It could cause an upset, it can cause blockages there as well. Okay, so the pollution prevention planning program, it's a pollution program that was implemented in the sewer bylaw in 2010 to help comply with provincial and federal regulations. The goal here was to help educate and work with customers to bring them into compliance with wastewater discharge restriction in the sewer bylaw. Pollution prevention planning outlines measures customer will implement that control and prevent pollution at the source. They can do this by avoiding the use of pollutants where possible, reducing the amount of pollutants that reach the wastewater system if avoiding is not possible, and eliminating pollutants wherever possible by replacing products used with more environmentally friendly products. So pollution prevention, it's not designed to let them to allow to pollute all the time. We're working with them to reduce that in ways that they can prevent it. They can add wastewater treatment. They can be reducing or recycling. We're just working with the customer through the program so they can eliminate this at the source. So what is required of the customers in pollution prevention? The customers prepare a P2 plan, identifying how they will bring their wastewater discharges into compliance with the bylaw. They will submit the P2 plan for our approval, and they will submit regular process updates. So this is more of a customer-driven program. They're the ones who decide how they're going to do this, and they present their options, and we approve their plan. So again, it's more customer-focused. They know what treatment they need. They're going to run their own industries, their own plants. We're not going to tell them what to do, but they're going to tell us how they're going to get it to compliance with the bylaws. We have over 600 companies that went through the pollution prevention program. Over 100 of them had pollution prevention plans. And right now we have currently 9 active industries in the program. So at any time during this P2 planning, the customer can submit a revised P2 plan to address for unforeseen delays or challenges. These revised plans may include new treatment options or an extension to the timelines. So we completely understand the customer. It takes a significant capital investment sometimes to get. So it's not, okay, you have 6 months and that's it. We work with them. They have plenty of opportunity to get extensions. If there's an equipment breakdown or you can't get equipment, we work with the customer to ensure that they have opportunity to meet those compliance limits at the end. So at any time during the P2 plan, the customer can submit a revised plan to address unforeseen delays or challenges. These revised plans may include new treatment options or an extension to the timeline. However, each customer is limited to 2 P2 plans to account for these unforeseen outcome of their first plan. So Maple Leaf Foods, I'll just go through the timeline of when Maple Leaf entered the program. So November 2014, Maple Leaf was notified that a P2 plan was required for sulfide natural oil and grease. In June of 2015, the city approved the P2 plan with a completion date of February 2016. Maple Leaf Food revised this first P2 plan 4 times, each revision extending the completion date. So the first request was in February 2016. They requested a completion date of June 2017. In March of 2017, they requested another extension. New completion date was December 2018. In June of 2018, they requested another completion date of June 2019. And in June 2019, they requested a further extension to November 2021. So we did work with them. They did request some extra time for unforeseen circumstances, and we did work with them to get them into compliance. Really, in the end, we want them in compliance with the bylaw. So we try to work as much as we can with them. So at the November 15, 2021, Maple Leaf Foods P2 completion date, they were out of the pollution prevention program. So once an industry is out of the pollution prevention program, they let us know that they're in compliance with the bylaw limits. They've done their testing, they've done their treatment, they know how they're running their plants, and they tell us, okay, we've optimized, we are no longer out of compliance with the bylaw. Just because they're out of compliance with the bylaw, the city of Winnipeg still does their due diligence. We still want to know if, that's not meeting the bylaws. So we will still go out and sample. We will still take our own sample just to ensure that whatever they're telling us is actually accurate. They no longer have oil and grease issues. So we do have to check that, right? We have to protect our infrastructure. We have to make sure that the sewer system is being protected. Between November 15, after the completion date, February 22nd, 22, the city recorded 2 oil and grease and 4 pH violations. As a result, in April 6, 2022, Maple Leaf was issued an order to submit a new plan for oil, grease, and pH. So they re-entered the P2 program. They had another opportunity to go into the prevention planning program. So in July 2022, the city approved Maple Leaf a second P2 plan with a completion date of November 2022. Maple Leaf revised the second P2 plan 3 times, each revision extending a completion date. So now we're in November 2022 completion date was now February 2023. The request to extend was requested in February 2023, a new completion date July 2023. Again, in July 2023, a new completion date was requested for October 2023. So on October 13th, Maple Leaf Foods' second P2 plan completion date was in October. The city received the following communication from Joel Grant. We have made process changes and have done verification sampling, and we believe that the oil and grease issue is solved. Again, we take it's a customer-driven program. They've done their sampling, they've done process changes, they're in compliance with the bylaw. So they are out of the P2 program. Again, as due diligence, the city will go out and spot check. So it's possible it could not be in compliance, a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later. Sometimes they go years after someone's been out of the P2 program. They may have expansion, a treatment process. We always go back and check just to make sure. Between October 15th and March 2023 and March 2024, the city recorded 4 oil and grease violations. November, December, January, February. The limit is 100 in the bylaw, and there were oil and grease values of over 10 times that, 1,000 in December. As a result, March 20th, Maple Leaf was issued an order to bring its wastewater discharge into compliance with the sewer bylaw limit for oil and grease by April 19th. We did do another test on April 17th. The result was still above the bylaw limit. So Maple Leaf had significant investments in expansions and has not addressed adequately wastewater treatment. We have other large industries in the city of Winnipeg that they have went through the P2 program and are in compliance with the bylaw. Our recommendation is that Maple Leaf has had ample time to bring the oil and grease and their wastewater compliance within the sewer bylaw. They are our longest customer in the pollution prevention program for over 10 years with no accountability of their discharges above the bylaw. We treat all industries the same. There's other industries that have exhausted 2 pollution prevention plans, and we treated them exactly the same as we did with Maple Leaf by issuing them an order after. So our recommendation is that the appeal of the order be denied and that Maple Leaf Foods be required to come into compliance with the sewer bylaw limit for oil and grease. That's it.
Thank you, very thorough. Clear, much appreciated. They should all be like that. Councilor Santos. Here to have a question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm assuming during all the while there has been correspondence back and forth between Maple Leaf and either yourself or someone from your staff.
Absolutely.
Just reading, you know, their appeal paperwork, they had mentioned that they did not receive. I don't know if you read it.
I've read that, yes.
Okay, so that would be kind of my question with respect to that, if you had any comments.
Our staff has been communicating consistently with Maple Leaf. Just because we didn't take samples and give them the results, they still have to do their own due diligence. They still have to test their processes, their wastewater treatment. If they tell us they're in compliance and they're running the plant as it's designed, we work with them, we take their word for it, and they told us they're out of compliance. Our sample shouldn't justify their plant operations, right? So we're taking our samples for our due diligence in the sewer system. They tell us their processes are working, as they did at the end of October, telling us that we have this resolved, then the issue is resolved in our opinion.
Okay. And then second question, on page 3, there are a couple of dates here where they're back to back. Like for example, January 8, 2024, it said 48.3, and then the next day it looked like you guys went back and it went up to 379. And then February 5th, it was 92, so they're below. And then back in February 26th, it went up to 169. Could you explain to me why the fluctuation between the 2 dates within the same month? Because it seemed like they were below the 100 milligrams, and then the next day they're above. So maybe there'll be a question to the industry. I'm assuming they're here, but
Oh, so why their results go up and down?
Mm-hmm.
That day they could have been doing a bacon run, right? Who knows? We don't know exactly every day what their process is. I think the industry would be better suited to answer that question, but the results can vary depending on wastewater treatment that day, what processes they're doing. They could be doing cleaning one day, so they could be flushing everything out on one day, or the next day they could be doing a production run. It just depends. It's not consistent every day.
And what is your bar, or is it 3 times? Then you issue them order? Like, what is your standard, like your bar of giving them leniency or comply to make them into compliance? Like what is your justification for issuing them an order after, say, a couple of months?
They've been in the P2 program for 10 years. We've tried working with them for over 10 years. It's not one and done if you have one result and you're above, but there's a reason there's bylaw limits. It says 100, and if you're over 100, you've exceeded the bylaw, right? You're no longer in compliance with the bylaw. It's like a speeding ticket. If you're over 100, you're gonna get a ticket. So it's not leniency on 1 or 2. They've had over 10 years of oil and grease discharges. So it's not just the one, it's more than one occasions.
Thank you.
Questions, Dobson?
Yeah, I'm looking at page 3 as well, and I'm looking at December 18th at 11:39 a.m. It says 1,050. If I got a reading like that, I'd be back every day, because that's 10 times the allowable. I just don't understand why you weren't there December 19th, December 20th, etc. Because that's so high. I mean,
That's
if
so
it's
high.
over a little bit, I can understand, but that's excessive.
We don't just have one industry that we monitor all industries in the city of Winnipeg. This is not just the one program our group does as well. This is not just pollution prevention program. We have a lot of programs with limited staff, so we wouldn't be there every single day.
And my other question is, if the company said that their systems are working and everything's is compliant, then of course you would not necessarily jump out there and start doing a whole pile of testing. You would have to take their word for it to some extent.
And if they've invested significant capital funding, they've done wastewater treatment, they've told us they've done their verification sampling, we shouldn't have to be there the next day, but we still do it just in case.
Sorry.
Sure.
With respect to your recommendations and coming into compliance, what does that look like? Because obviously you said you're always going to continue to work with the client. Is there a time frame? Are you going to be a little bit more strict on the time frame instead of allowing them up to 1 year? You're going to shrink that timeline to come into compliance within 6 months? Because I don't think I see, like, I know you said April 2024.
Right, which is
We're already in May.
Right,
Past
so
that,
Well spotted.
So now that they're out of the pollution prevention programs, they don't have an opportunity to re-enter that. Because then we're just getting back into the same, getting into the program, continuing to discharge. So going forward, now that they've received an order in April, we can proceed under the MBEA with penalty notices. So we can proceed with penalty notices on MBA or Provincial Offences Act informations and go through the provincial court system to get a compliance order to get them into compliance in that way. So it's the responsibility of the industry to get into compliance. Just like any other industry that exceeds the bylaw,
do they pay a fine to us as the city of Winnipeg?
Under the MBA, I believe that's who the Manitoba Violent Enforcement Act, yes.
Through the province?
We can do it two-way. We can do the municipal bylaw enforcement act or through the provincial court system.
Okay.
It's two different streams. You can, the municipal bylaw enforcement is like writing a parking ticket.
Mhm.
Every violation you get a ticket for, let's say, $1,000.
Okay.
And the Provincial Offences Act is like going through the provincial court system.
Okay.
But that's just to collect it, like there are fines.
Yep.
There are fines that are collected by the city, it's just we have a couple offices.
Well, which way are we going if the appeal is denied?
We will start with MBEA. It's less stringent on the industry, but we will start with the MBEA tickets or penalty notices.
Sharon, I have one more question. If I read those slides correctly, in October 2023, that's when the P2 plan was complete?
Complete the second. yes.
Complete, and yet not even a month later, November of 9th of 2023, you had natural oil and grease result of 465, almost 5 times the allowable.
That's correct. That's why we wrote an order in April to get them to compliance. That's our next steps in enforcement. So we write them an order and then we can proceed with the penalty notices.
Okay.
That's just our enforcement steps.
All right.
Is anything, I can't tell from the map of the CSO districts if this is inside the Mission District or maybe just outside the blurry map. There's a line running along the edge and that seems to move, but does anything ride on that? A, is it in? B, if it is in, does that have any, does that influence our sewer bylaw treatment of an industry?
Regardless, the limit is 100 coming out of their plant. It doesn't matter where you are in the system. If you're over 100, you're exceeding the sewer bylaw.
Okay. Just, I mean, if you're in a CSO district with all the residential housing limits, we have, we're dropping 130 million into the Mission District, hopefully within 6 to 8 years. I mean, but everyone drive in the same direction, so, okay, but Tim, you don't know, I think it's in Mission. I think it's, if it's in any of them, it's in Mission, but for today's hearing, it doesn't, nothing rides.
Sorry, just kind of a last question.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe a little bit of a dumb, not aware. Give me an example. What's 100 milligram per liters? Like, give me I'm assuming that's fluid, liquid. Give me
Liquid,
what is
yeah.
it, like a bottle of water, cup, any visual context?
So
My
100
math-
milligrams
yeah.
per liter is a concentration.
Okay,
So it's not necessarily like a 100 milliliter bottle. So it's how concentrated that is per milliliter.
Okay. Okay.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Good.
Clerk.
Okay, now we can move on to hear from our appellant, Mr. Joel Grant, on behalf of Sean Lowen, joining us in person today. You can go have a seat. Yeah, you'll have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
Good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Joel Grant. I'm the Director of Environmental Affairs for Maple Leaf Foods. I've been with Maple Leaf based out of the plant at 870 Lachaudière for 16 years. First, I would like to provide a bit of background and context to the issue. This Maple Leaf plant has been operating in this location since the 1960s and has gone through many changes over its history. You mentioned earlier, Councillor, was there pig processing? Yes, all the animal slaughter stopped, I believe, in 1999 when Burns sold the plant to Maple Leaf Foods. Currently, the plant produces ham and bacon year-round and some sausage in summer months. The plant has recently undergone a major expansion with the addition of a pre-cooked bacon process that started up in the summer of 2022 and ramped up in fall of 2022. The original bacon process was commissioned in late 2012, and along with it, a new wastewater pretreatment system specifically built to prevent non-compliance with the city's bylaw for oil and grease. This system was housed in a temporary building. This pretreatment system also collected processed wastewater and processed condensate from the Rothsay rendering plant next door on Dawson Road. This operation of a combined pretreatment plant was at times difficult. In 2015, the city directed Maple Leaf to enter a pollution prevention program to correct issues for oil and grease and sulfides. Both of these issues were directly coming from the Rothsay, at this time now Darling effluent, coming from the rendering process condensate. Darling got a handle on the oil and grease issue by the end of 2017, and it was removed from the pollution prevention plan. The sulfide issue remained as it came from rendering of feathers under the pollution prevention plan. As the discharge was from Maple Leaf's property, the pollution prevention plan was under Maple Leaf's name. The issue was coming from Rothsay, Darling. The plan on the extensions was that we were planning to build a new wastewater treatment plant to treat the sulfides, and Rothsay was building their own wastewater treatment plant, which they've gone and done. At the end of April 2019, the connection from Rothsay was severed. We no longer received any wastewater from the Darling rendering plant after April 30th, 2019. All the non-compliances we were experiencing had ended at that time as the source was removed. Around that same time, we were constructing a new pretreatment plant designed again specifically to comply with the city bylaw, with expanded bacon production and the new pre-cooked bacon process. This pretreatment plant came in line late 2021, early 2022, and the pre-cooked bacon process started up June 2022 and ramped up in the fall. So with the previous pollution prevention plans for Rothsay's contribution, the city then directed us in April 2022 to enter a new pollution prevention plan for pH and oil and grease. These issues were from the startup of the new pretreatment plant and wet testing of the pre-cooked bacon process. These processes were new for us, and we did experience some startup issues and some growing pains. The pH issue was corrected very quickly. For oil and grease, we had originally thought that the new pretreatment plant just needed optimization, a little fine tuning, and addressed that first with the help of some consultants. When the issue remained, we extended the pollution prevention program and investigated our internal plant procedures. We believe the culprit of the oil and grease issue was a particular process of washing the conveyor belts that carried the bacon through the cook line. We took steps to alter this process while under the pollution prevention program. This was a lengthy process as we had to be sure that making this modification would not compromise food safety. We also had to wait on some parts to arrive. When that modification was completed, we did some sampling and the results looked good. So we allowed the pollution prevention plan to expire. As you saw the note from me, said we've done our testing, everything looks good. We don't want to keep extending the pollution prevention program because we understand how that looks. My understanding from conversations with city officers was that we would be advised if the issue remained. After the completion of the pollution prevention plan, we did not receive any indication from the city that a problem remained. We received no notices of violation, no emails, and no calls. The sample results that you've seen were not shared with us until the order arrived in March. Had the city communicated the bad result in November, we would have dedicated all necessary time and effort to find and eradicate the issue. Knowing soon after a bad sample was taken, we would have been able to easily correlate the date and time of the sample to activities in the plant and consider any irregularities that might have been present at the time. That 1,000 is obviously a major upset that we should have investigated had we known. Since receiving these results in March, we've launched a major investigation into all areas of the bacon process and the performance of the new pretreatment system. We've already initiated process changes in our quick draft system to prevent grease from entering the drain. We're retraining all sanitation crews to change their procedure and clean grease catch pans and chambers to feed into our grease recovery room instead of down the drain. We've increased aeration on our dissolved air flotation unit to improve fat removal. And we're currently investigating our silo clean in place system and procedures. In short, we're going over all processes with urgency to get the wastewater into full compliance, and we are committed to it. We are not asking to be exempt from the bylaw, nor to be out of compliance indefinitely. We had believed that we had sorted the issue last fall and then did not hear anything from the city until the order arrived. All we ask is to return to the pollution prevention program for a period of 3 to 6 months to complete our investigations and corrective actions. We are committed to full compliance with the bylaw and appreciate a collaborative relationship with the city waste and water department. So I thank you for your time, the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions?
I think you answered the question, sorry.
Yeah.
I think you did answer the question, so you are, working to double check and investigate, and I guess go back into your history of why these numbers are so high, because now you have the dates. And then you had mentioned that you're committed to compliance within 3 to 6 months. Is that 3 to 6 months from today or from when the order was issued in March?
It could be from the date of the order completion. So,
From the date of the order of completion, so April.
April 19th.
Second question, do you happen to know, I guess, how much money your company has invested in the new treatment plants in 2022, roughly?
Roughly $15 million.
Okay. And do you anticipate in the coming months, in this 3 to 6 months, you'd be doing more capital investments to improve whatever is required in the treatment plant or within your?
So, we're in the engineering phase of a major expansion to the wastewater pretreatment system. It's primarily to remove phosphorus from the wastewater, but it would also clear up any oil and grease issues with its large equalization time. This project we're on a bit of a capital hold right now but it is still, the engineering work is ongoing. So I don't have a projected startup date or construction or startup date for that.
But that's something different from, you're saying that's the wastewater treatment plant for the sulfur, right?
No. We don't have a sulfide issue. That was all Rothsay's.
Okay.
And they've got their own plan to deal with their own issues.
Okay.
We are also a very large surcharge customer, the city, and our phosphorus surcharges are very high, and we'd like to get them. Our design consultant for the plant we have gave us assurance that it would treat the phosphorus down to below bylaw limits. And it hasn't. So we've gone back to several other consultants to improve the process.
And what's the timeline on that? Do you have a timeline on that?
The result of that is the engineering work for a plant expansion.
Okay.
The Rothsay Darwin isn't really material again, but is that Maple Leaf, but a separate?
Maple Leaf
Or is
used
that-
to own Rothsay until 2013, around 2012, 2013, where they sold to Darling Industries. The plan to build the combined wastewater treatment plant came when Maple Leaf owned Rothsay. So it was a cost saving to build one large plant instead of two medium-sized ones. Then the sale of Rothsay came while that plant was being built. The two companies decided to go ahead with the plan. In retrospect, it's probably.
Changes happen, expansions, I remember when I was in Brandon and did some work for the union in Maple Leaf, and there was like a whole room that was dedicated just to the blood thinner, like there was, there's the bacon stuff going on, and then like there's just a lot of things going on, there was some project, some process by which things are extracted that work for blood thinners. So just are there other expansions that I don't think any, like, it would be awkward if you were back in the year saying, well, we also had we were also expanding this, so that may have screwed up the numbers then. You gave us the extension, but we're back again because we've expanded again or changed this or that. So where do things stand with that?
I'm not aware, I might not be the person to be aware of future expansion plans of the plant. However, what I will offer is that when we planned the bacon expansion, we knew there would be a heavy oil and grease increase. So we built a $15 million plant specifically to deal with that. And our oil and grease issues were not existent problem other than Rothsay's. Once we closed them off, we built our own plant. We expected our new plant to work. We were having some startup issues, some wet testing issues. We believed we had it beat. Now, we found out in March that we hadn't, so we've been scrambling. Let's fix it immediately.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Robinson?
Okay, so in March, you got a letter saying that you had to bring it in compliance by April 19th. Did you contact the department at that point and say, hey, look, we're doing the best we can or anything? Because on April 17th, if I read that correctly, we did another sampling and you were still over. Was there any conversation between your company and the city at that point, between March and April 19th?
Between the issuance of the order.
Yes.
I did reach out to Megan Marsland and asked if we could re-enter the pollution prevention program, and that we were immediately investigating and getting to the bottom of things. And she responded that we could not.
Okay,
So yes, I did reach out.
that might be a regulatory answer, so we'll find that out.
No, just asking for process. Is he allowed to come back after we have conversations with the administration as to rebuttal? Okay.
Okay, yes, so it's tricky. Okay, if there are no further questions, then thank you for the presentation. Thanks for being down here today, and we'll go on to the next speaker.
So just to confirm, we have, or is there anyone else here who would like to speak in support of the appeal? And in opposition to the appeal or for information? So now would be questions to the public service.
Okay.
The obvious question, did they contact you after you sent out that order in March to have it all in compliance by April 19th? Did they contact you and your answer was?
They asked us to re-enter the pollution prevention program, and we said they've exhausted both P2 attempts, so no.
So it wasn't possible to extend it at that point?
They're in the past, when they requested an extension, it was always before the completion date. The completion date happened in October. They said they were in compliance, they did their testing, they were out of the program. They should be continuing to test and to do their verification sampling and to know that their plant is working. So when we go, we don't need to tell them that their plant is not working, they should know that, right? So when we did these samples, we just didn't take one, we made sure that we had, it wasn't just a one-off, that they were exceeding the bylaws. So we did that, 3-4 times. And then we proceeded to submit the order to get into compliance, and they called us, can we go back into the program? And we said,
Clarify too, like, we're not the speedometer for the car, we're the speed trap. Like the plant at Maple Leaf presumably has its own data, they should be testing their own, the process performance, monitoring it, we're not privy to their data from October to February, we're doing spot checks to make sure that it's working.
Well, exactly. An hour later, it could have been 2,000. Or it could have been 100.
But customer's plant is not supposed to rely on our spot checks to gauge its performance.
Yeah, they're supposed to do self-regulate.
At what point of time when you do your sampling, I guess it looks like it's over a couple of months. During this time, when you do the samples, do you ever provide this data to the client that they're above or below? Do you ever provide that during that time?
typically, no, not for this program. This
Okay.
program is more of a customer-driven program.
Okay.
For other programs where we have to, like in the oversearch program, where they're the phosphorus, the nitrogen, the solids, we give them a heads up because they've got a budget, because they've got to pay surcharges. So they've got to incorporate that into their budgeting for that quarter. So this program, no, but there are other programs that they do that get their data.
We heard from the delegation earlier today that they're willing to be in compliance within 3 to 6 months from April 19th, 2024. What is your rebuttal?
We don't have confidence that that will occur. If they are working towards compliance, then by all means, work towards compliance, but we will still continue our spot checking. We will still proceed with enforcement action if necessary.
Any further questions for the administration? If not, then back to Mr. Grant. I think you can speak in rebuttal. You can't bring in new evidence, but you can certainly speak in rebuttal to that which you heard through our deliberations.
No, I understand that having been in and out of the PPP since 2014, looks like we're a long-term bad actor. However, the first plan was entirely from the Rothsay effluent. We were experiencing growing pains of our new startup, and we are working through those issues. We thought we had them, but as we've been investigating, we found some new things to work on, and we continue to do that every day. We are sampling every day right now. And we're looking at the results and going back into the plant, sampling different streams from around the plant, not just the final effluent, to determine which areas of the plant contribute how much oil and grease to the system. We will also be bringing in consultants to our polymer vendors to see if there's a better chemical to remove oil and grease than the ones we've been using. We've been working on using chemicals to keep the surcharges as low as possible. If we have to shift to make the oil and grease as low as possible, then that's a step that we'll take. We do regularly monitor our wastewater. However, the city takes composite samples for our surcharge and grab samples for oil and grease. We take composite samples for everything because we don't have the means to be sampling, grab sample and analyze them all hours of the day, all days of the week. We take a week of every month, do composite sampling for the surcharge parameters, plus oil and grease, and we continuously monitor pH.
Hey, doesn't look like there are any questions, so, okay, thank you for the presentation. If we can take a seat. I think then, Madam Clerk, we are at that time of needs to move.
Um,
We're on
I don't need to
page
give
two.
recording comments, do I? You can just go through the motion.
Correct.
Okay, I move that the receipt of the public representation be concluded.
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary, that's
Um,
carried.
I'm gonna be looking to my clerk. I am not supportive of the appeal. Okay,
Okay,
so I move that the appeal be denied
denied.
in that order of the Industrial Waste Services Branch Head Water and Waste Department be confirmed. No, I don't have to say anything. Unless you want to say something. I heard enough.
I support that. Yeah, I think this is. I don't want to say long-term bad actor. I don't think we're saying that, but it's just, there's been a lot of extensions. That was a pretty thorough summary of a lot of extensions. Let's just try and get this in compliance. This seems to be the way to do it. We try and treat people equally. Remember, we had one on that little restaurant somewhere in Wolseley that we declined that appeal. I remember that pretty clearly. So, yeah, I support Councilor Sanchez's motion. All right, no debate. We'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary, that's carried.
I move that the appeal herein be concluded.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Contrary, that's carried.
Can I request a 5-minute ballot break?
Okay.
And I'll just quickly mention, please note the committee has made a final decision on this matter, which is not subject to further review.
I have one item to add to the agenda, which I think was mentioned earlier, and then we have, is Mr. Grant joining us or? is
He
it
will be,
just-
yes, after the
Okay.
delegate information.
Call the meeting back to order to deal with the main agenda items here, May 6, 2024, Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste and Environment. Two things, we'll hear from Mr. Grant, who I think is our only delegate in a moment. Colleagues, I would like to add an item 6.
Okay.
I'll be requesting a verbal report in 60 days or so on a lot of work being done on storage tunnels and
Do you want me to
CSO
move a
projects.
motion to add new,
Sure.
okay, I'll move that for you?
All right, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, that's carried. So yeah, we see us. So my familiar theme of mine sewer questions. Okay, so Madam Clerk, then on to Mr. Grant.
Morning, Mr. Grant. You'll have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you very much. And that was a very entertaining prior hearing session. If you would amend the rules and allow me a few seconds to offer some facts and questions in support of your actions today. I suffered through analogous problems with grease and lard as a plant operator and engineer at the West Windsor Sewage Treatment Plant.
Time's full, so we can't.
Yeah, Ms.
If you don't want me to go, I won't.
Yeah, clerk is pointing out the legal difficulties with that, so.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. And I've sent it to the clerk so she could forward it to you just for your, to support what you've already decided. Anyway, thank you. On topic 1, waste review, I support this review and the idea of it. I see that this is silent on a few important aspects. These comments are here for you in writing as well. What is the cost of collection in terms of fuel used, since we're talking green, and tires consumed and the labor cost per 1,000 homes served? If we're comparing apples and apples, which is the purpose of the review, it'd be good to see the actual breakdown of those costs that we know of. And the other one is we send 4 trucks, or we're proposing sending 4 trucks to every house every week, or 2 weeks or whatever. And how much can be saved if each truck collected 2 or more waste streams? Such trucks are common. Why not here? Have your staff informed you to help you make good decisions? Maybe those multiple waste streams per truck things are only good for rural municipalities with few homes. But anyway, that's just a comment on that one. Sole sourcing of oxygen. Municipal purchasing rules are designed to minimize costs. It should be alarming when those rules are not followed. An engineering company has put us in this situation. That they support violating the usual rules should surprise no one. When I worked at a big city water treatment plant, we owned all the equipment, the instrumentation, and the tanks involved. Suppliers could be changed seamlessly at the end of a contract period, and they were. We were a chlorine operation, but the chlorine tanks came from whoever was supplying them. These are truck mounted things. Anyway, when you paid for this plant, did no one question the benefits of owning and not renting the oxygenation equipment? Since we're being pushed into more sole source buying, is it time to move to a triple CAO governance model? We're going to be doing a lot of our purchasing apparently with sole source and negotiation between the CAO's office and the vendor. So anyway, that's just a thing to maybe contemplate, not for your department necessarily. What can be done to mitigate this problem? We know you're operating in the public interest. Pavement cuts after water work. Normally this SPC doesn't get involved in pavement stuff, but in this case you have to because your folks have cut up the road. As always, getting a good price for good work is a goal we all share. Are you all convinced that the process you're using is getting the best price by extending a contract and not asking for competing bids? And on the topic of good work, when a cut is repaved, does the remote road remain smooth months and years later? When infrastructure is an inch or more below grade, when the surface over it, heavy traffic can cause catastrophic damage. If a cast iron manhole ring is below the surface of the road, every truck and bus that goes over it beats on that thing. And that can cause the underground infrastructure to crumble. So that's something I think that should be part of your contracts for fixing up cuts in pavement, is to make sure that the finished surface stays relatively smooth so that it doesn't get beat up by buses. Because it's your infrastructure that's going to get broken. There's a concrete tube running down to where the works are, way underground, and that thing can get disrupted by the top surface not being nice. So your contract extension should include a review of how good is it a month later and fix it if it's left a depression. Adding incinerator tech to our waste programs. Before you go down this path toward building a large incinerator, please keep in mind that this would mean a drastic increase in costs. It means spewing smoke and poisons across the land. They can only be justified when the waste stream cannot be landfilled. The material going to our landfills is fairly well screened already. Please note that other cities have recognized that such operations are unlawful. That is the case, as I understand it, in Manitoba. With respect, may I suggest that you delay any investigation or vendor conversations until you have a solid confirmation that Manitoba Environment is ready to approve this sort of incineration process. And I'll let you go back to business, and thank you. If any questions, feel free.
Yeah, Councillor Dobson.
It's not so much a question, it was more or less the hard surface cuts. Thank you very much for pointing out the fact that if they're not to the correct height, then of course they're going to wear the subsurface stuff down rather quickly.
Yep.
That was a good observation, and I like you for it.
Yeah, my first example of that was in front of the Hiram Walker Distillery in Windsor, where the tube running down to where our valves were was made out of brick, and the mortar had mostly dissolved out of those bricks. So it was a pretty vulnerable piece of infrastructure. And we made sure, very sure, that the road surface was perfectly smooth there, knowing that if we dropped down 2 inches, our little brick chimney would crumble. So it's something that's an issue. And thank you for recognizing it, sir.
Thank you for your comments on number 5 as well. It's we'll be getting a verbal report on that today. Okay. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for the submission.
Yes, thank you very much. Bye.
Onward. Yes, to reports. Number 1 is we have these requests for time extensions look a little different than they used to, which I think is a good thing. You keep thinking, oh, here's the report, and then you realize, no, it's just an extension. But we've had these in the past where you can't figure out if it's new or old or what. So this is a request for extension of time.
Yes, this is
related to the public and private overview for garbage and recycling collection. Yeah, the report's is kind of a standard form document now, basically confessing our homework's not done, and we're asking for an extension. So this particular report, you may recall, we do have several garbage collection reports in the works. This, we're asking for an extension of up to 60 days. That gives us to end of June, June 28th meeting. Hoping to get it sooner, but the reason we're asking for the extension is we're not completed the report. We've been trying to coordinate some of this information with our garbage collection consolidation report, and getting the costing is all correct and everything to kind of match. So that's the longer story, but the short story is we're asking for an extension up to 60 days.
Yeah, this is the gathering storm, these 3 or 4 different reports, all aiming hopefully for the compost report to the one we had last month on downtown issues basically, and this, which is let's bring some of it in-house, focusing mostly on the downtown, but not exclusively. So yeah, it does make sense, so we need to have it all try and come together. I will stand by what I said at a previous meeting about the numbers here to bring in-house certainly don't look bad when you look at other cities. They don't look like major costs. And if we just extended and went for a model with Transit Plus that said, no, we won't be consolidating. No, that's not where the savings are. No, we'll continue to have a multiplicity of different smaller contracts, then that is what council voted for. So the idea, no, we have to stay big here, that just does not accord with what we did with Transit Plus, which was, oh, no, there aren't big savings from consolidating. So going from 2 to 3 here citywide, certainly that would be the same philosophy we just applied on Transit Plus services. And you may say, well, that's different. Well, actually buying buses, those are pretty big vehicles too, as our garbage and recycling and compost trucks. So there was a suggestion from Mr. Grant about could you consolidate, but I think the problem there is you could have 20 trucks each picking up one thing, or you could have, it sounds like these trucks are coming home half empty here, so you might as well just have to pick up the other stuff. But it just seemed more like if you have to pick up 2 streams, you'll just fill them up that much more.
Yeah, in terms of co-collection options and that sort of thing, that's more of a that's not this particular report we're talking about here.
Right.
is costing a downtown zone delivered by the public service in terms of the fleet and comparative costing. In terms of I think maybe what we're blurring into is the organics report, talking about what a program should look like, whether or not we reduce garbage collection as we have organics collection to split up some of this material, and how it relates to efficiencies, greenhouse gas emissions, this sort of thing. So that's maybe a bit of an overlap there, but this is particularly about what would a downtown zone look like if it was brought in-house.
Okay. Everybody good with that? Okay, so
I'll move it.
all right, thank you.
That we support the Winnipeg Public Service recommendation.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, that's carried. Now on to a run of contract awards.
Yes. Yes, it's definitely a run of contract awards. These are more procedural in nature, these reports. I do have our manager of water services, Mike Simon, here to help with any questions about these, because they all relate to either his division or has his name involved in them. So yes, the first one is a single source negotiation and award. This is for our liquid oxygen storage equipment at the water treatment plant. The equipment and the delivery of that material. It is a single source. It's not quite an extension of previous work, but you may recall, it's a memory quiz here, that 2020, we did the previous extension of this contract. When it was discussed at council, the question about why do we lease this equipment and not own it was discussed at council at length. And what we were directed to do and came back with was a consultant assignment to look at the business case, because if I can recap, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong here, because it's my own memory test. The equipment is very specialized equipment. It's pressurized, super low temperature, liquid oxygen, storage equipment. And there's only a few players in town that deliver this stuff. They really only deliver to their own equipment. The equipment has a service life and it's leased. Where we were at in the service life of this equipment really informed the business case to say we should try to do this extension one more time before we go out to like a wide tender. The tendering this contract would basically require proponents to build their own equipment. So the idea there is that the equipment we've been using since 2009 will be nearer to its end of life after one more extension, and it would start making sense to look at new equipment. A couple of things to note on this. It's what we're looking for is a contract from July of this year till December 2028. It's a $1.9 million. That's an as required. That includes the lease amount, but it also includes the estimated amount of liquid oxygen you would buy. It's a supply contract, so it's not definitely going to be 1.9 million, but that's our estimate of what it would be. It's a sole source, and because it's a sole source and because it commits to future budgets, council needs to approve it. So that's why we're here. Anything else you want to add?
No, it's just the asset they're designed to service life of 25 and with maintenance could last 30 to 40 years. So we're 15 years into the life of that asset. This would extend it another 5. If we put these to market too soon, on a lease arrangement, we take on risk that they're going to want to recover the costs of recovering construction, right? So current estimates on construction of a new skid like that would be approximately $2 million. So if you're putting it out to market every 5 years and you have to reconstruct the skid, we're taking on risk with regard to a lease arrangements. So.
Can you define the use of skid in that?
It's an oxygen tank essentially. It's a large system for supplying liquid oxygen as part of our treatment process.
I should also flag the study that we did for the business case. We did present back to council in December of 2020. So we're following the recommendations of that study that we presented.
I guess I maybe have read the report wrong. So I thought we were only extending it for 1 year, but we're extending it for 5 years. 4.5. Are we looking to do a new design and build with a new liquid oxygen storage? I guess I read the report wrong. Are we still looking at that option to date, or we're only extending the?
During the course of this term, we would evaluate whether or not a further extension would make sense versus going up to tender for new one. If we go up to tender for a new construction, that would result in the current vendor, once the contract ends, removing their infrastructure.
Right. Okay.
And a new vendor would have to put in infrastructure at that time. So we would evaluate.
You're doing that within the 4.5 years. Okay, so not 1 year. I don't know. I thought I read somewhere 1 year. Okay, just looking for clarity. Thanks.
I've just got one question relating to the actual storage container. Does it make sense for us to own our own storage container?
We reviewed that, and so the AECOM report that we provided in 2020, we did a life cycle cost analysis on that. And a life cycle cost analysis at that time revealed that it would be more cost effective for us to lease versus own. So that's why we stayed.
Instead of trying to get into that business ourselves.
Correct. You need specialized, equipment for that. You need to have staff that are, trained and capable of doing that type of maintenance as well. So you need to do, annual inspections of the equipment to meet codes. So there's involved some expertise involved in maintaining.
So quite the opposite of what we've always said. The city could be cheaper if the city built it.
Not always the case.
Yeah.
the X reach for the topper and the feels compelled to ask, what temperature are we looking here for this big down? No, it's not something you go to the store to buy too often. So except for
I
Carly.
don't have it.
You do have it that briefing. It's, I want to say it's like minus 180 something.
Incorporate that into our next
Celsius.
Wow.
We'll have some blastocist kids that one.
It's very cold.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that can confirm that.
Yes, I can get back. All right, anything further?
And this is going up to council, right? Because
Yes,
it's, okay,
They provide, yes, they have to approve the single source negotiations.
very good.
okay, I'll move the report of the Winnipeg Public Service Recommendation.
Very good, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary, that's carried. Okay, next in our troika here is approval of contract extension number 1 for restoration of hard surface utility cuts.
Yes, and this is not to be confused with the report we had I want to say 2 months ago about the over expenditure on the previous account. But this is the contract extension for our repairs of surface excavations. Basically, this report, the amount is an as required unit cost. So we don't know how many holes we're going to dig in the next year. But we can estimate that. And we have a unit cost awarded through the previous tender to a contractor to come and do these restorations. The estimated amount works up to about 5.7 million. That gives us our expected expenditures with some flexibility so that we don't have to come back to council if we're over. It's very dependent on what happens in a given year through water main breaks and some planned maintenance. It's actually the same unit cost as the previous contract. It's just the quantity we've adjusted to try to reflect our estimate of activity. I should note, I know that there was some discussion there in delegation about how we restore this surface cuts. They are restored according to the City of Winnipeg construction specifications. And so the specifications are designed with the intent to have a permanent restoration and service life as a brand new street. So, yeah, that is. Back to this. This contract is for water and sewer, but because the water excavations are the majority of them, it's administered through a water services division.
And I of course will bring this up. Grant had mentioned that the quality of the work for the hard cuts, so they cut chunk of our road out, and we go back to make sure that it was done. And
Public Works colleagues, they have inspectors that will inspect the cuts that are completed. They scope out what the cut needs to entail and the work that needs to be completed. So that's all done through the cuts permitting process and review.
Like any entity, whether it's an external company or utility or another city department, any entity has to have a permit through Public Works to, cut a hole in their infrastructure.
Yeah.
And so it's inspected and measured, and Public Works tell to their standards how much of the street panel has to be replaced to get a better asset life out of the repair.
Yeah.
And they come back and ensure that it's done to the standard.
so we check.
We
Okay.
do, we check, yes.
I'm good.
Any further questions?
Oh,
Not,
I think you guys had described here last year how many cuts and restorations you've done, right? Last year? I think it's just more of an estimated annual cost of 4.9. And then it shows estimated number of annual cuts repair sites.
Yes.
So that's for June 15, 2023 to June 14, 2024. Right?
That was the previous.
That was the previous.
The current report is
Yeah,
our
well-
average. And
I guess why is such so large, like 700 to 1,100? It's a pretty big average.
depends on our main breaks, how many breaks we have. It also depends on
But you don't have a definitive number.
Can provide because it varies on.
Sorry, yeah, we're confusing. So this isn't last year's numbers.
No, this is
their
the current
estimated.
estimated.
Yeah.
Well, this is a current estimate,
Yes, so
okay. And then we budgeted accordingly, the increase is budgeted accordingly to this estimated number that you guys are predicting.
correct.
Okay, do you have a prediction of, that's what I'm wondering, do you have last year's numbers? Or is this up? Like, what's the percentage you're going up by, is what my question is.
Last year's extent will be,
Like, are you going up by 25%, like, number of cuts?
it's based very similar to what last year's numbers would have been. Yeah,
Okay.
which was kind of on the side of our line cuts.
You know what, the over expenditure report from 2 months ago might have those numbers in them, but we can get back to you.
You know what, that's fine, internally, that's fine, because I believe this has to go up all the way to council. Again,
This one,
no one, well, it's here.
the committee has the authority to make a decision on.
Yeah, I'm fine. If you can just get me those numbers later on, as long as they're justified, I feel comfortable, they're justified.
Do you want to move that then?
It doesn't matter.
Catch it up.
I move that we approve the Winnipeg Public Service recommendation.
Okay, and
All I
all,
can read it out.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, that's carried. Number 4,
For the Board of Contract for Supply of Ultraviolet Disinfection Equipment, tender number 975-2023.
So this is an end of life replacement for, and I apologize, I guess this isn't at the water treatment plant, this is at the, why, I've got notes on it, but we have UV treatment at all our plants on the way in and on the way out. So, yeah, this is end of life replacement for UV equipment at the north end, sewage pollution control facility. So the reason it's here before you is because of a couple of procedural things. We only had one bid for the supply of these UV bulbs. Bid was 7.2 million, and it was under the $8 million pre-tender estimate, which is great. So the bid price isn't the problem. But the bidder had included some proposed alterations, so the bid was technically non-responsive. So because it was only one bidder and it was non-responsive, our purchasing rules allow us to negotiate an award with the non-responsive bidder. So we're allowed to do that, but we need a SPC approval to do this because it's over $5 million and those conditions are in place. So procedurally, we need SPC approval to award this contract of $7.2 million for the lamps, UV lamps there and at the north end plant.
But you need to negotiate
We have negotiated, like.
Well, you have
it's-
negotiated
Yeah, like the
non-responsive.
yeah, the non-responsive bid, there was a couple of different, like when you put in a bid, there's conditions you have to meet. And if you want to change any of those conditions, like for example, one of the ones here, they wanted some reduced insurance. We didn't accept that one. They wanted some reduced aggregate indemnity. We worked it out. It was acceptable because it was just supply, not construction. They wanted to change the warranty start dates, so we were okay with that. And we changed a delivery date to match with their project schedule. So once we agree to those things, the price is still the price, but we've agreed to these minor changes. We're still classified technically as a non-responsive bidder, so we have to follow this process to move forward. So we're still getting what we want. We're still okay with their changes that they wanted, but because they were one bidder and non-responsive, here we are.
I guess the way the recommendation looks, it just says deemed non-responsive for failure to conform.
Yeah.
Anybody who looks on the outside is like, why are we supporting it? Is there any way to try to change some of that wording, like where you're saying you've done your negotiations, is it in here? Cause I didn't see that. Oh yeah, undertook negotiations and arrived at terms and conditions acceptable.
I apologize, I just noticed the recommendations are numbered funny, 4, 5,
Yeah.
and 6, that's, problem should be 1, 2, and 3. But yeah, recommendation number 2 is where we're like, number 4 is just factual. They're non-responsive and technically they're non-responsive. But number 5 is where we're saying we would like permission to award this based on our negotiated terms and conditions.
Oh, I see, yeah, based on, okay.
Is this, I mean, I noted in this year's capital budget, I think we've discussed this, our old friend, the page that talked about UV treatment, it wasn't in this, but previous years, I'm just looking at 2023 capital, there was a water treatment plant, $400,000, but that was it. It was like 23 and done. And then it's got 2.6 million for previous budget, so we must have accrued some money over time on that.
That was for the
But
treatment.
that's the water.
Yeah.
This, we're not, this is North End sewage.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 different streams here. This is the water one, we've done whatever we've been upgraded. Okay.
What's the timeline for this update or for this ultraviolet disinfection system? Like, what are we looking to replace? Like, what are we looking at timelines here? To start to finish? How long is it gonna take?
I'm not sure. The existing system's still in operation.
Okay,
But it needs replacement. We're looking to, we're not gonna repair it, we're gonna replace it, there's some equipment and lamps. The timeline of replacement, I would presume as soon as we get the award, we'll start on it. I'm not sure the project timelines. I have to get back to you on that.
And this is money that's already in, this is project 1, this is Headworks money that we've already allocated, so we're just doing the doing of stuff as part of that.
It looks like, based on the cash flow, it looks like it's starts a little bit in 2024 and finishes in 2026. In the page 6, the financial impact statement is kind of a proxy for like when we're spending the money should kind of tell you what we're doing with the project. So that's my interpretation.
that's good, that's money.
It's the North End. Sewage treatments.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll support the
Very
Winnipeg
good.
Public Service recommendation.
all right, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary, that's carried.
Item number 5, sorry. Integrating ultimate thermal organics converter technology into Winnipeg's waste management infrastructure.
Okay, this comes out of Riel, so some debate on this at Riel Community Committee. The original motion was much more sit down and incorporate this and do that, and my view was, well, that will delay, counter, derail the compost work we're doing, the biosolids work we're doing, and maybe something else up in north. If the idea was, let's take all of our garbage and all of our biosolids and flip them to these folks. I've met with this group. I'm pretty sure Michelle Pettel has met with this group. Councillor Chambers is entitled to bring a motion. That is democracy, but if the motion is staff should meet with this group. Anyway, that's we worked together at Real to sort of come up with what you see in front of us. So the idea was to bring it here and have staff relate what meetings had taken place with this. It's a private company. We've got other people wanting to do various different projects with various waste streams from the city of Winnipeg as well. So yes, anyway, if I can, that's the background.
And it's just requesting a verbal report, not a written report.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, just a verbal, what's the timeline? There's no timeline.
today.
Oh, okay,
And Mr. Shanks can, Director Shanks can speak to the efforts to date.
gotcha.
Yes, I can give a quick verbal overview right now. I mean, like right off the bat, like we would recommend against this approach in terms of making motions for us to select, companies to engage with. And it's not because we don't want to engage with this company, but we do have we already have engaged with this company actually several times. I can come back to that. But I just say that right now, like there's multiple parties approaching us, independently approaching us with, different variations on things like this, waste to energy, different types of technologies, that are maybe being developed, maybe not. They're approaching us, all the time. So they're approaching us. We're also engaging the market in, we do market soundings and you know, our staff participate in all sorts of, industry associations, this sort of thing. But right now we're actively engaging the market on projects that relate to our overall waste management plan, like organics, for example, that involve this waste stream. So, you know, as part of our comprehensive integrated waste management strategy, you know, we are working towards looking at different solutions for our waste stream, diversion rates, this sort of thing. So we are actively engaging industry all the time. And you know, pointing out one company via council motion to go engage with, really don't think this is what we want to do. Specific to this company, yes, we've met with them before, and the what they're pitching is it's very interesting, certainly. It's not really an established process yet. They have basically what they're pitching to do is to burn something at such a high temperature, it burns it clean. So they would burn everything, garbage, organics, sewage, sludge, you name it, just incinerate it in this super high temperature unit that, and then recapture the heat through, you know, the power generation or something like that. They had a small pilot version set up somewhere in I think it's Portage Prairie that we had tried to go visit when we were there. It wasn't working. They've had some other locations, I believe, in BC where they've done some stuff, but we have met with them and gone over some of these things. It's really not an established. This specific technology is on paper. You know, it's the science is there for sure, but it is not something that is established or scaled up anywhere in the world. I would be a little bit cautious about spending time and resources on it right now and taking away from our larger plan. When this is more a mature technology, maybe it would have a place. I would also flag, like we're technically our license when it comes to sewage, like taking the sewage and sludge, technically our license requires us to recover as much nutrients as possible. We can't just burn it. So we're not really set up to do this, not to say that we wouldn't keep our eye on this, but again, that's basically why I would kind of say we really shouldn't be, you know, council motions directing us to certain companies and not others. It's kind of
you made a mention that it's, sorry, what was the word used again? That this ultimate thermal organics converter, it's not, what was the word used? Not acceptable, or it's not
like scaled up. It's not demonstrated. Maybe
not demonstrated. Sorry,
established.
Yeah, established. What do you mean by it's not established? Like they don't have a trademark, they don't have it federally regulated, like or provincially regulated. Like what do you mean by it's not established?
They do not have other examples of where this is taking all the waste from a city and burning it. They don't have a working example to scale.
So not enough data out there to.
It's not proven technology. I guess
Okay.
it's not proven technology.
Okay, they don't have a trademark or anything like that.
They may have part of. I'm not sure. I can speak to that. They're in these advanced stages of establishing it. They're trying to pilot things and demonstrate it. So it's a very.
So what you're saying, are they trying to approach the city of Winnipeg to do a pilot project?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that hasn't been that. That wasn't the gist of the motion, the original motion.
I guess and then the next question you'd mentioned, that we as a city are already updating or doing research and feedback and surveys of our current waste management and diversion, right? I think we
Yes.
discussed that earlier this year. That report is coming forward for public feedback and public consultation. When is that coming forward?
I want to say that's coming forward in June. Are you talking about the update on our comprehensive integrated waste management strategy?
You mentioned that strategy, yeah.
I want to get it renamed, so it's not. Muslim, but,
That's coming up later on in the fall.
No, I want to see in spring, I think.
That's like the comprehensive review.
Yeah, our stats of performance and how we're meeting up with the previous, the last, we update it every 5 years in terms of our targets.
And does that deal with the pollution, greenhouse gas emission and land degradation? Does that include that? Does that strategy include that or not? Do we have any strategy that talks about pollution, greenhouse emissions?
Well, I mean, the city has, we have our Winnipeg and our climate goals, certainly
Right.
overall.
Right.
We do talk about diversion rates and greenhouse gases from landfill sources. But how that writes up in the CIWMS report, I'm not sure offhand. But yeah, specific, like there is also an outstanding question licensing wise, like in terms of would our provincial license let us incinerate everything at the landfill? Understanding that the business pitch here is that it's incinerated at such high temperature it burns clean. I think where the questions would be is, well, is it always operating at that temperature? Is there startup temperature? Like at some point, it's not, it may not be 100% clean. So
this is not even done anywhere in the world.
not at the scales that we're talking about for us.
Okay.
I believe they had a small kind of demonstration setup built at one point, like I said, near, I think it was not in Portrait Prairie, it was in the RM of Portrait, it just west of here.
Right.
We did go to inspect it with them, and it wasn't operating.
That's the cost. What about cost? You can't just bring something up to 1,300 degrees for no cost. And my thoughts, of course, are in different areas where they don't have landfills available. Then that cost would be acceptable. Perhaps here, not so acceptable when we're doing other ways to mitigate the climate waste.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I'm not sure. I certainly can't speak to the business case. I don't think we got that far along to it. It was more so of a high level. Does this fit with our plans? Do we have confidence in its applicability at our scale? That's the kind of level of questions that we were at, not necessarily.
So it may be too early because we're not 100% sure of the actual costing.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, everyone always thinks they can save us $1 billion. I'm not sure if that's exactly what was being proposed here. I hear that. And it's, the startup costs, the operational costs, and frankly, we'd be building a plant in order to not comply with provincial requirements on sludge and and we would all of the work on compost that we've been doing for the past couple of years to finally get to the starting line would be moot.
Did this company come to Rio Community to make a presentation?
No, I think I've met with them. I have certainly met with them more than once. I guess the chambers met with them. The motion you see here was very much a sole source kind of motion, and we amended that heavily to what you see here today.
Well, my closing comments, like I'm willing to move this for information. I don't think we have enough, obviously, information on this technology. It obviously needs to be more thought out when it comes to burning at a very high level. I am interested in what we are doing as a city to divert, some of these things from the landfill, what are, and obviously we have multiple strategies. Can't read all of them, hundreds and hundreds of pages. So maybe it might be a little bit of my own naivety that I should start reading a lot of it, and so I can get my head wrapped around it. But at this time, I would not be supportive, of moving forward with this type of technology at this point in time.
So we move
to receive it as information.
very good. Okay. Councilor Dobson had made a good point there. We are not pressed for space in the landfill. We have like a century, and that's before we do the compost. We'll have
Every place in the world is a different scenario.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, that's carried. I'll hand the chair to Councillor Santos.
Sure.
My motion, which the clerk is, I think that's okay, what you drafted there. The issue here is, speaking of 1,000-page reports, we have the 1,322-page combined sewer report from August of 2019 that was approved by the province. Within that report, there are dozens of different sewer districts that are each individually discussed, sort of what work can be done. Other cities have taken a path of doing very big storage tanks. So I thought this was a uniquely American thing, but actually, at a conference recently, there was talk of the one that's been done in Ottawa, which is now completed. One in Toronto, which is nearing completion. There's quite a big one, some sections of which are 300 feet below surface in Hartford, Connecticut. Atlanta has one. And interestingly, just in the media last week, Paris has completed work on a billion euro storage tunnel to try and make sure the Seine is usable for the Olympics, basically, and people can start swimming again. The idea is Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're just having a massive tunnel, like a subway tunnel, it's the runoff, right? It's in these heavy rain events that we have. Most other cities have them. We don't want the water discharging into the rivers. We also don't want it discharging in people's basements. So the river has been the device to ensure that combined sewer outflow doesn't go into people's basements. Other cities have come up with this idea of, we'll store it, we'll sort of hold on to it until levels go down, the rains stop, and then we'll fire it through the sewage treatment plant. So it's a device to try and minimize these spills that we have, other cities have. These are big projects. But I mean, if one believes that commentary out of Ottawa and Toronto, we said Ottawa, well, we're done our CSO work, and I look at us, we're talking about 2095, or the fast version will be done by 2045 if we increase the funding, and this just seems like, wow, they're done. They're like 20 to 70 years ahead of us. Is this an option for Winnipeg? It is mentioned in one of the combined sewer districts, the Lavarandre, which is in Councillor Allard's ward. There's talk of, well, we need a tunnel there, not a horribly big one, not a huge one, but that's the idea. So anyway, the director has talked to me about this, and Cynthia Weave's now back on, which is great. So I'd just like to get a discussion that is, quite often we get close to these things and people say, well, our soil is different. But I mean, Chicago has one of these, Ottawa, Paris, like it's, and obviously if there's one recommended in our report, it can't just be, you can't do this in Winnipeg. But maybe our needs are such this isn't a viable thing. And admittedly, it's spend $1 billion to avoid spending $1 billion. That's sort of very, very rough math. So, but I would like to get, it just strikes me other cities are doing this. Why not here? Is in essence so the clerk has, to her credit, drafted up an attempt to summarize my ramblings. So what are we're asking for a verbal report in 60 days, within 60 days.
Yeah, verbal report in up to 60 days, or in 60 days, that would bring us to the July meeting, which is on June 28th. On the possibility for Winnipeg to look at CSO tunnel construction as a means to expedite CSO work.
I'm also frankly a little motivated by, there was a big lawsuit filed last week. It wasn't all about CSO. We're not the only defendant, we the city of Winnipeg, but it's about Lake Winnipeg, really, the lawsuit. So it makes sense to look around and say, is this a way of expediting it? I don't know. And the cost is clearly very big.
And then, of course, you're gonna have multiple CSO sites where you're gonna have workflow, not just one place, it would be multiple places.
Well, I mean, the tunnel option, it's one of a slate of options to help reduce CSOs. It's basically a surge tank, right? Like, so in some places, it can make sense to do underground storage. As a, you know, a standalone solution, like you still have to treat like, if you had a magic wand, obviously you would separate all the sewers and rainwater would just go to the river 100% of the time. This captures that surge of mixed rainwater and sewage, and then pumps it out back into the sewer at a lower rate, at a lower time, like a lower rainfall time, so you're still treating it. So you're not reducing your treatment volumes, and you have to predict your stormwater volume storage. So it can, in some situations, it's more economical to do that. And in some places it's not. Yeah, that our master plan, or as it stands right now, for some of these districts, you know, very high level, there you can call it functional design, but some of these districts have a kind of a conceptual design, and one of them had flagged, hey, in La Vérendrye, there's some space and room for conceptually underground storage would make sense there. As those designs get further along, you know, there may be opportunities to use underground storage. You certainly can come back with a verbal report on what this is and where it could be. You know,
Yeah.
applied.
And I mean, it may be in Winnipeg, it isn't just like Lake Ontario or the Ottawa River, it's trickier. You gotta, well, I mean, you've obviously got a bunch of stuff around the Assiniboine, there's stuff around that feeds into the red. I think the same is an issue here as well with the emission probably does. So maybe this just isn't. Maybe this you can't. I mean, it's fascinating technology. You drill a huge shaft down to get the boring machine in, and that shaft becomes where you fire the water in eventually, or the sewer. Like it's actually quite interesting technology, but at it, you know, hundreds of millions or $1 billion and huge, you know, the obligatory political photo of the local politician here, and 30-foot high tunnel there above them with the boring machine. So it's a big ticket thing, but it's certainly not uniquely American, which had been my understanding. Europe and Ottawa, Toronto, but maybe here it's just the wrong plan given our layout.
Okay. Any other further discussion?
No, I'm good, provided they provide a report of some sort, just covering some of this stuff. What they can see, the high level, of course.
Yeah.
Because of course it won't be effective all across the city, but it might be effective in some locations, might be cost effective.
Well, yeah, I mean, trying to get us down, I mean, getting us to 2045 is gonna take it up from 2095 is the goal at this stage. So anything that can speed this up is good. And yeah, but you can't build a tunnel under, you can't build a tunnel under like Sage Creek, because you do follow the treatment plant, presumably. You'd have to find the tunnel needs to be somewhere near where all this problem is occurring, the older part of the city, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, not without you trying to keep it to generalities here, but somewhere before, it's like an interceptor sewer, right? Somewhere before it gets to the outflow, you capture that volume and then you put it back into this regular system again. It doesn't necessarily have to be near the plant, but it's like if you have space, or some places I mean, you could just go deeper. I mean, you're pumping it out anyway. I mean, but it's your, that sort of thing. It's all part of the calculation. What we can come back with certainly is a presentation on what these are, how they work, maybe other examples, and where they might possibly.
That seems like a cross-jurisdictional scan. Or are you just more like high level?
But it's like, clearly we had this, we didn't do the reporting. 2019, the staff did, and Jacobs Engineering, and we never really debated it, and that's okay. But just why? What's intriguing, frankly, to me, is that there's one recommendation. It's not like we can't do it here. It's like our soil is totally incompatible. It's like there's one that they do it. It's okay. So could we do more? Does that make any sense?
It's a standard, it's an option in CSO practice So,
Okay,
so in short, no, like,
it's a
Yeah.
short-term solution until the CSOs have been built.
no, no, it was.
Oh,
it
this
was-
is a long-
It's,
Is
it's,
it permanent
instead of our
structure?
billion-dollar voyage of doing, you know, Armstrong and then this, then, you know.
Yeah.
For 70 years, you try and shortcut the whole thing and have this giant storage tank, basically, where you store it until the rainstorm passes and then you fire it. Now there's room in the pipe, so we then send. these-
If I may bring out, the Assiniboine Downs does the same sort of thing. They store all their wastewater because they can only ship it across, to the system at a slow rate. So whenever they have a big event, they store it.
Well, that's, so of the different technologies or features you can use to help reduce or remove CSOs, like sewer separation or green infrastructure or you know, bioswales or underground storage. These are all different obviously tactics. They're different things you can use. So I know our project staff are very knowledgeable on these things and can speak, you give us a primer basically on where these fit in the overall plan and some examples, some famous.
Are these like in replacement or in lieu of? Like they're replacement ways so that we don't have to do certain CSO projects in certain locations? Like,
They're part of the CSO, like if
part
you're
of
looking, if you're
CSO.
looking at a district and you're trying to eliminate combined sewer overflows or reduce them significantly, there are different things you can do, right? You could build you could totally abandon the existing combined sewer system and build two new separate systems from scratch.
That's what I thought we were doing.
That's the ideal, that's the ideal.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought we were
That's the $4
doing.
billion voyage. We're on
Right.
the cheaper end of that. We're on the $1 billion voyage.
Well, I mean, like, so the ideal is complete sewer separation. I mean, in some places, actually conceptually, if you think about it, when we kind of started this path a long time ago when they built interceptor sewers, which was a new network to intercept the sewers that were just pouring into the river, right? But they can only handle so much before, so that's the weirs we talk about, overflows. And maybe I'm getting way down to the weeds.
No,
here.
okay.
It's
Yeah. I think when you guys come back, you know, we'll have, I was just curious, how, is this a temporary, is this a permanent, or this is gonna be adding to our current CSO
No,
upgrades?
this is
The
it.
$1 billion upgrade that
This
we're doing.
let's do it quickly for $1 billion and get it nailed down. And not do
And you
the
said
other
how much
$1
would it cost to do this?
It depends on the location.
Oh,
Yeah, that's all.
You
Site
said-
specific.
I mean, the Ottawa one had federal and provincial help, so that's good. On the other hand, the Ottawa one billed as this is the solution, overflowed within 4 years, and it just didn't have enough capacity, so.
I'm sure this will come up if I talk to our project staff, but the changing climate, like, because you're trying to calculate how big of a tank this storage has to be to handle some design storm. And that's changing, right? So
Lots of rain.
case in point, you could build one of these things and it could be not big enough.
Yeah.
So just like,
okay. Okay. Any other discussions? No discussions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye, and that's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank
I'll
you.
have the chair back.
all right. Anything else, Madam Clerk?
That is all.
All right, well, a motion to adjourn from.
Sure.
Councilor Robinson, all those in favor?
Aye.
That's good. Thank you. We are adjourned.